Hey there, Banditos. Welcome to the Wednesday episode of the Dollar Bin Bandits. I'm Mike Farah, and today we have David Lapham joining the program. He is an artist, he is a writer. He is probably best known for his independent book, Straight Bullets, which is published through his El Capitan Books. But we get into his early career at Valiant, where he worked on such titles as Shadowman, Harbinger, and Rye. His brief period at Defiant, where he had followed Jim Shooter from Valiant, and then striking out on his own, doing the Stray Bullets series on and off for the past few decades. Did a miniseries Murder Me Dead somewhere in there, worked for Marvel, DC, and a bunch of other publishers throughout the years, and now is bringing to you with his wife Maria Good as Dead, which is a new Skybound Image book miniseries, the first issue of which comes out today. So let's talk to the man himself. This is David Lapham. David Lapham on the program. David, how are you?
Very good, very good. If I could just say real quick, my partner on this book that we're going to be talking about a little later, and on Stray Bullets and so many projects, Maria, she really wanted to be here but couldn't be here today. So maybe next time. But we'll be my story and her story are very intertwined. So I'm sure we'll get into all of that going forward.
I'm sure her name will come up many times, and you will speak as best you can on behalf of the team together. All right. So, as always, our first question to our guests is, how did you first discover comics?
Oh, I first discovered comics as a little kid in the drugstore. Like, this is in the 1970s. And I don't know what my very first comic was, but a few early ones I remember getting at the drugstore an issue of Nova. I don't know if he's even still a character.
The
Uh,
Human Rocket.
yes, and I love that. Um, the funny thing of comics in those days was, you get them at the drugstore, and you get an issue, and then you may never get the next issue. You find another issue months later, 5 issues later, or so. I remember as a kid, I would read comics over and over again that ended on cliffhangers. It was very frustrating. But the first comic that really grabbed me and I got into comics where I had to have all the issues and then had to seek them out at different drugstores and then eventually comic book stores was Frank Miller's Daredevil. I mean, no, it's not a unique story, probably like most people of my generation got into comics or became fans of comics from his run on Daredevil. And I was one of those. Um,
Nothing wrong
so
with it. It's very
yeah,
influential
yeah.
book and run. So, um, how did you make the leap then? And it may have been at a later time from, fan, reader, collector maybe of comics to, aspiring professional in comics.
Um, I I loved comics, and from that point, and then there started to be comic book stores, and so you could get things routinely, and then I started collecting all sorts of comics, and I always drew, so that was a big deal to me, and I always drew comic stuff, and um, but when I was a kid and even as a young teenager, like it never like clicked in like that was a job that I could do, that I love that, but I was gonna go to college and become whatever, you know. Um and that came in when I met what would become my wife, Maria, and she was like, "No, why don't you do this? You should do this." Like, you, and um, she helped me at that point to sort of pull myself together and make samples and send samples up to Marvel and DC and all the companies that we could find. At the time, go to the comic book store and go through all the comics and write down all the addresses and send stuff out. And it wasn't no email or anything. So everything was like make photocopies. I would drop a little story, and Marina would make photocopies, and we would write my name and address on the back of like every single page of the photocopies, and then we'd send them up to the different editors around comics. And then I would draw another sort of 8-page story, 6-page story, whatever. And then we'd do it again and again until eventually got a call from Valiant. And then that's how it sort of started.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you were only 20 years old when you broke in with Valiant. Is that
Yeah,
right?
20, I was 20 years old. Um, uh, I was 20, was engaged. Maria and I were engaged, and it was getting sort of closer and closer to our to being married, and I hadn't broken in yet. So it was a big relief when I got that call and went up to the city and met Jim Shooter and Don Perlin and Bob Wheaton and the people up there, and then I started commuting to the city and basically apprenticing and learning on the job. Doing Harbinger and Rye and all their early books. Like I just right place at the right time, really, for that. You know, basically a brand new company just starting. Like the superhero books hadn't even come out yet, or were just coming out as I was walking in the door. And then all the people up there were all the people I grew up reading. All the Marvel guys, legends to learn from. So, um, and then eventually getting into indie comics and then mainstream comics. It feels kind of special to sort of have started in like the old school of comics and to have a like one foot in that world. Um, yeah.
Did they throw you immediately into the deep end, or did they kind of warm
Yeah.
you up on a couple
Well,
short stories?
it depends what you think warm up is. I thought uh, when they said, we think you have potential and we want you to be coming up and learning and stuff like that, I thought that it would be like an apprentice kind of thing. Like I would be assisting or erasing pages or something while I was like, in the minor leagues kind of like learning. But no, it's just thrown right in like from day one. Like the very first thing I worked on day one was printed, which was actually a wrestling story. They prior to doing superheroes, launching the superhero universe, they had a license to do WWF, now WWE, but comics. And on day one, they had me sat me down and started me drawing the splash page for a story that was called "The Ultimate Warrior's Ultimate Workout." And um, so I was just drawing this picture of the Ultimate Warrior lifting this enormous weight above his head. And like I said, it was sort of right place, right time. It was like I was still raw, but they needed bodies. They needed people producing work. So I worked on a lot of books. And at first they'd get veteran inkers to come in over me. So I could learn, storytelling and learn drawing and learn to bring my drawing along while I had that safety net of, someone who really knew what they were doing to come in over the top and fix that weird looking arm or, you know, weird proportions or whatever. Uh, and yeah, and spent a lot of time like every day, commuted up to the city. Um, and uh, just learning every day. Maria would come up lots of times at the end of the day, and um, we would go out with like Jim and all the guys, and we would community and learn all the old stories, and it was great time, and great education. Um, for someone, especially like like I said, I was 20 when I started. I didn't go to art school or anything like that. So that was my school.
It's not bad to start on the Ultimate Warrior either. I mean, if you had to
Yeah,
pick a
no,
wrestling
it was
character
great.
that's sort of super
And
heroic.
I still have it here somewhere. I think I have it over here. I gotta show it to you. So this is the book. It's
Nice.
oversized. And and this is the page.
Looks great.
Yeah. So yeah, I spent apparently the story was I spent like all day drawing that thing in the office, drawing that splash, trying to draw it and racing and drawing and racing and drawing and racing. And with various people coming over, looking over my shoulder and I don't know, shaking their heads and walking away. And at least this is what they told me afterwards, is like when I left that day, they didn't think I was going to come back. They thought like, oh man, we just put that kid through the ringer. We didn't get this. We were busy that day. We didn't get to spend a lot of time with him. And then when I came back in the next day, they were kind of like shocked, and that's when and then Jim sat down with me and gave me like my first sort of like lessons in storytelling. He pulled out an old Jack Kirby comic, walked me through it, showed me all the things that he um, did, like the basics of storytelling through Kirby. He's the ultimate master. And and then from then on, it was like we just kept going. End up doing we did the Rye was the next one, the Rye Magnus Robot Fighter Foot book. And then Harbinger and other stuff.
Were you getting full scripts since you were sort of learning on the job, or were they doing any of this Marvel style, like giving you a little bit of autonomy?
It was Marvel style. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So um so yeah, I had like it wasn't trying to remember. It was definitely not full script. It was more plot script. And it was cool that right from the beginning when we did this we would sit down at the go in the office with Jim and um we would do and he mostly would have like a plot in mind and stuff, but we would really sort of hash out, talk about the characters and like um, go through the plot and write notes down, and everybody got to contribute who was involved in that particular book. Um, so immediately it was always about storytelling and story, and then and writing too. The fact that I was just supposed to be the artist, but I'm there contributing ideas to the story. Um, that was I mean, I'd like to think that I would still be doing the kind of things I do now without that. That I was always a person who's about like story and characters and all that kind of stuff. But but I don't know. I could have been because the trend going at that time in the early 90s was everything sort of moving away a little bit from story and being about big splash pages and splashy images and design pages that incorporated a large character figure and like very poster kind of stuff. Um, so I don't know. Maybe I would have gone down that road some, but definitely everything that Jim and the others were teaching me made total sense to me and really sparked my imagination to then ultimately want to go do my own comics or have ideas story, and then ended up collaborating with Maria and doing first this superhero stuff, and then Stray Bullets, and moving on.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you had sort of writing aspirations as you were breaking into the industry, but it seems as if whether you had them or not, you were at the right place for developing that
Yeah.
storytelling
So learning like and
ability.
then it was that the idea that this is that it is it's actually one thing, like um the art and the writing are actually this are part of one thing, you know. It's like a movie isn't the movies, the pictures and the actors and everything together creating the movie. We don't talk about like, oh, there's the acting thing and that's totally separate from the camera shots and the direction. It's all one. And it's great if you could do it all yourself. Um, but even as a team, it's still all one thing. And even today, where I'm doing a lot more drawing these days than I am writing. Um, Still as the and when I talk to other like a younger artist, whatever, you're still as an artist, um, you're still contributing to the writing of the script because you have to interpret the script and tell the story, and you're adding all kinds of things that another artist would put different things in there. Um, so yeah, it's all one thing. It's all cartooning. Um, and it's making the comic. So and that was definitely sparked right from the beginning. So I and that was drummed into my head and uh, but even before that, when I would do like samples to send up, it would be like you do like 6 pages, but it wouldn't be 6 random pages. You have to kind of come up with a story. Probably, it was a terrible story. Wolverine comes into the thing and there's a cult and then he starts chopping people, but you still have to come up with a narrative to do that and send it up. So
Uh, Makes a lot of sense. I agree. This sort of the magic is in the alchemy. It's not any one
yeah,
part of
exactly.
the process. So you after Valiant, you followed Jim to Defiant,
Yeah.
his sort of short-lived imprint. But then after that, you struck out on your own pretty quickly. I think after that, I think it was
Yeah.
95 when you started El Capitan,
Yeah,
and
actually the end of 94 and then we came out in 95 and that actually stemmed out of Defiant when after Valiant blew up and the company blew up in a popularity way and then it imploded on Jim and then eventually like I left and then Maria and I together were actually part of Defiant, the the founding of Defiant, and that you're right, it was short-lived, but it was a interesting period where we got to in building that company before it launched, we would have meetings up in New York to like come up with stuff, and people like Steve Ditko would come up at some of those meetings, and it was that was pretty amazing. Uh, and then that led directly to Marie and I deciding, especially once Defiant folded, that we would strike out on our own and made El Capitan our own imprint and to do Stray Bullets. Um, and that had been building, like the desire to want to do like our own book had been building for a while, even at Defiant. Um, so it didn't make any sense to just try and jump back into something else or a freelance situation or whatever. It just was like it was the time. And there was a big movement of um, small press and self-publishing going on at that period of time in the middle 90s. So that we were able to sort of tie into and bring our book into that mix.
were you concerned at all, sort of jumping out on your own, or did the Defiant experience maybe give you, and your Valiant experience just give you the confidence to,
Yeah,
put
I
your
think
foot out there.
like we were young and like what was going to happen, like it didn't work out, you do something else, right? But it was that notion though, so that comics is an industry where you can do that. Um, I don't know what that market is like currently today, but I see at conventions there's a big artist alley of people doing that, so I imagine it's still thriving. Um, but yeah, comics is that where we like Maria and I can write a story and I can sit down and draw the story and then she can call up a printer and get it printed and then and get Diamond at that time and actually there was a bunch of distributors at that time. Um and and get them to put in the catalog and then yeah, that was a special thing about comics. It was a comparison to say film where you need to um even an indie film where it's like I made this picture for $20,000. Well, we didn't have $20,000.
Right.
um And we didn't have the team of people that you even at that you need to do that. It was just like just the two of us, and then leaning on some people that we knew from the Valiant and Defiant, like Janet Jackson, who colored our covers, and another guy, Joe James, who helped design who designed the El Capitan logo, um, and things like that. But it was, yeah, just mostly our just two-person unit taking on the world, which is kind of cool.
Sure. And the, premier title, which still recurs up until this day, is Straight Bullets.
Yeah.
Um, how did you, was that concept kind of in your back pocket, or did it come to you at some point? And why crime? Where did that genre, why the attraction to that genre?
I liked crime from me, and I kind of drove that element of it. It's like I liked the crime genre probably because of starting out with the being like, Miller's Daredevil was just basically a crime book. And I liked even that's how I sort of liked my superheroes and the more crime guys, less. I mean, I liked all of it. I like so many different things, but like the books that were more human level, even in the superhero stuff, and gritty, and so attracted to that. And then even getting into indie comics and Love and Rockets and things just like human drama. So crime seemed like something that had um, all these elements of that you maybe want in a comic that would be exciting, like action and suspense and like atmosphere and mood. But then you can also tell like human stories through it. And if you know Stray Bullets, it is crime, but it's not crime like in the traditional sense of it's not like cops and robbers. It's not really mob and even some of those characters are in it, but mostly it's just about like fringe people who are like just trying to survive their own personal trauma, and but they live on the fringe of society, and they're where there's a lot of weird people and crime elements and that they get wrapped up in. But oftentimes it's just tangentially to their story. It's just the world that they live in. Not like I said, not so much cops and robbers. There's a murder and the detective has to figure out the murder. That's not really Stray Bullets.
Yeah. More street level drama.
Yeah, just yeah, drama. Somebody who's like, yeah, it would be more likely like I robbed the 7-Eleven because I need to pay my rent, and then that starts some sort of cascade of like terrible things that happen to me. But like very rarely does it lead to like, oh, there's a police officer at my door. Like the police are rarely even in it, and sort of uh those traditional elements. It's sort of I always called it them domestic noirs.
It's a good
Uh,
descriptor.
so yeah, so yeah, it's like the genre is just it's a heightened element to add to these like human stories.
Did you conceive of it at the beginning as kind of more of a world where you can tell stories in? Because you've done over 100 issues. I don't know if at the beginning you
Yeah.
were thinking that it was going to go that
Um,
long or that in that many places, I guess, or that many
yeah,
stories.
no, didn't think about that. Actually, at the beginning, it was just like had kind of an idea for one story, just a story. Thought maybe, and then Maria and I were talking, and then she had ideas, and I had ideas, and we're like, but they were, and what happened is we came up with a whole bunch of ideas, but they weren't all about the same character, um, in exactly the same situation, exactly the same character. And so we thought, do we do like an anthology kind of comic where we're just telling like EC comics where you're just telling
Right.
different stories? And then uh I don't remember which one of us came up with first, but it was like, why don't they just all exist sort of in the same universe?
Right.
Um, so each issue can be like, and in general, with a few exceptions, in general, Stray Bullets is each issue will be a self-contained story. But then very easily and very quickly we found ways where they all just could sort of connect um uh and a character who's a minor character in one issue becomes the main character in the next issue. And the stories just would sort of fit together to make this bigger narrative and kind of extensive universe of characters. And I guess that is where in the very first issue of Stray Bullets, I think we came out in like you said, 95. And I think the first issue has a date in it that takes place in 1997. And and then in the second issue we go backwards from there. And I think initially we thought that we would come back around to 1997, like that first issue maybe would be like the last issue or the last arc or something like that. And in our head we thought, well, maybe that we put it out from when we started, like 2, 3 years from when we started. We thought, well, then that's probably when we'll wrap it up. And of course, like you said, it's still going now. So I think, yeah, initially we did think that it would be at most like it would go on for a couple years and then we would do something different or see where life took us. Um, and then because we had that sort of concept where it can accommodate a lot of different kind of stories and a lot and expand the characters, we just every new idea we thought of, um, we just found a way to make it part of Stray Bullets. Um, and the only story we thought of that wasn't was we did actually one that was more of a traditional noir kind of comic called Murder Me Dead. And that we knew didn't fit what we were doing with Stray Bullets, so we did that as a separate series. But for the most part, yeah, everything just sort of worked in, so it just kind of kept going.
I want to get to your new series,
Yeah.
Good as Dead, with Skybound. But one more question, and that is you've done obviously Straight Bullets and other books for El Capitan on your own and with Maria. Um, but you continue to work in with mainstream comics, Marvel, DC, Image, doing things like Predator and
Yeah.
some other licensed properties. How do you balance? Those projects with your creator owned stuff? Is it kind of one for them, one for you? You just kind of
Yeah, no, a
whatever
lot of it
attracts
is
you at the time?
uh it's it's dictated a lot by what opportunities that come along, like and then there's practical things like it is a job. It's how we earn our living, you know?
Hmm.
And sometimes doing your own thing doesn't earn as much of a living as doing their thing. Um, so somebody calls you up and says you want to do this or that, and you say, yeah, sure. Um, and I don't I guess I've been do the back and forth thing enough that like um it doesn't uh it's not hard to transition back and forth. I do have to say, like I do prefer when um even when I'm doing their thing, I prefer projects where it's a little more collaborative. Um, because I do try and bring, even if I'm just say the artist on something, I do try and bring myself to it. Um, where I try and like we were talking about earlier, like interpreting the script where I'm trying to storytell this and I'm trying to give them something more than they gave me in the script. And that tends to be more the case when you're working with some of the companies like say a project with Dark Horse or um, I'm doing a lot of work now with Bad Idea, some other companies too, but like I'm doing a lot with them and they're super open to and the writers I work with there, Robert Venditti, Matt Kind, and other people, Josh Dysert, um, they're really open to being collaborative and where like they send me the script and I'll be laying out and I say, well, hey, what about if we do like, maybe better visually to play the scene out this way? It also might save us a page and be like cooler, and they're really open to doing that. So um uh I find it hard to shut off being creative. Like so even when it's something that's not creator owned, like that Maria and I do, and she's the same way, like if we're hired to write something, you want to bring you don't want to give less because it's not your thing. It's still your work. And so you want to have the freedom to bring all of yourself to it and work with people who are open uh, to ideas or different ways to interpret things. And um, so yeah, I think like so there's also to a degree there's somewhat the same level of creativity and um uh the bringing that energy into even other people's projects. And when it's not, it is a little harder. Like if you get sometimes, not always, but but sometimes you get a script from especially like a bigger company like a Marvel or DC. And like I say, not always. I'm not trying to insult them. They have their own thing, but sometimes it's very kind of rigid, and it's just you feel like you're just sort of a pair of hands. That is a little harder to work on because it's
Well, this
fun.
new book, yeah, it's an interesting segue because this new book, Good as Dead, occupies kind of a weird gray space in that it's not a pre-existing property, but it's also something that you've developed alongside others.
Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about well, what it's about and also, how it all came together?
Yeah. The how it came together is we were talking to Skybound about like hey, you like let's work together. You got anything going on? Um and they said, "Hey, we have this thing." And they sent us it was like a basically like a 5-6 page pitch by Chris Black and Dave Alpert. Um uh and at that time it was called Emissary, which is reference to a central element of the book, which is a bridge. And they sent us this pitch and they said, "Hey, read this. Like, If you like it, we'd like to see you guys interpret this, and however you want. And we read it, and it was great. It had a great central concept, had a great atmosphere. Um, it's super seeped in classic noir films like the 30s, 40s, and 50s. But then it had all these other elements that it suggested, surreal elements and science fiction elements in it as well. And it it really sparked like our imagination, what we do with this. And um, had one of the more fun things you can do in a story is when you have like a sort of a self-contained environment. And in this one, it's basically set in it's a very remote U.S. town that borders Canada. And it's basically it's so remote that the most of the commerce and life centers around people going over this bridge called the Emissary into Canada. Um, So that's sort of and that was why it was the initial title. It was like that was the lifeline of the town. Basically whoever controlled this bridge controlled the town. And this story sets up that is this rich family, the Vlades, and then they have a rival family, the Calhouns, who are sort of the law people in the town. And our main character is the sheriff, David Calhoun, who of course hates the Velades, who have the town under their thumb because of this bridge. And something, not to reveal everything, but something happens in the opening of the story where he feels that their control of the town is finally going to be broken. And uh, that thing that goes horribly wrong, and a tragic event happens, and the sheriff's sure that it's the Vladis that did this, so they can keep control of the town, and he's got to come after them. This is further complicated by the fact that we don't know who or how or what, but he is poisoned very early on in the story, and so he is basically dying through the story. And so he has sort of a time clock on him that he has to basically find the evidence to convict to get the Vlade family. But then as he dives into it, all these layers put back in the story actually gets bigger. The mystery gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And it brings in wider conspiracy elements. 'Cause there's government elements, there's secret things, maybe UFOs, maybe magic. We're not quite sure, and I'm not going to reveal now, but this and this is in the original pitch, this is all based around this old noir called DOA, Dead on Arrival, which is the story. It opens with this man stumbles into the police station, and he's been poisoned. He's about to die, and he basically tells the police the story, and then you flash back and you see the story, and it's basically he's been a Walking Dead man through the whole story. Um, but he was able to solve it, whatever, in this noir, or whatever. So, well, an element of that is in this. That's sort of the central thing that happens to the sheriff. And so, between him and the people around him, and we have this amazing cast of characters, some of which were in the pitch, some of which we were able to come up with, that Maria and I came up with and added in, um, where, like I said, he's trying to get his arch enemies, but then finds out that maybe things are even bigger than that and affecting the entire town, and it's just fun. We see him deteriorating. We see people trying to help him, people trying to find a cure for him, people uh, giving him various substances to keep him going. Um, and everything's just about how long has he got? Can he make it one more day, one more hour, one more minute to be able to unravel this entire thing? Um, and One of the great things about this is that we had initially it was 12 issues, which now is going to be the six double-sized issues. So, but you see, it's a big chunk. So we were able to build this town and build all the characters and not have to compromise or shorthand or cliff note any of the elements of this. Um, so we're able to do like we do with Stray Bullets, like just really dig into it and make all the characters real uh and even though these are sort of non-traditional characters in the Stray Bullets sense, because these are like millionaires and government and cops and we were still able to then also um seep them in these small town people who have families and have crazy relatives and have um, hang-ups and flaws and all the things that we're known for with Stray Bullets, we were able to bring into this and I think create like a really complete world without compromising.
Was there a challenge there bringing it from, a 6-page pitch, especially from, if I am getting this right, the original idea men are from television
Yeah.
and sort of adapting it to a comic sensibility?
Um, I think that there maybe was there was a challenge. There's not a challenge because we're the comic book people, so we translate everything into that. You'd have to ask them about their pitch. It's like I don't know. It's possible that this was an idea that they had for television that would be sort of natural. I don't know. Maybe it was just a comic book pitch, but once it came to us, we could see it, in comic book terms, and that the challenge was the exciting part because they had so many elements, but then it was like, what can we also bring to it? And they were like, you know, you do you do your thing on this. Not like we have to control exactly how we see it as a TV show or something else. Um, and I mean, you see that like I think it's a big mistake a lot of modern comics make where the success of all these movies when then they took the comics and they made them into these successful movies, but then they try and change the comics to be more like the movies, you know.
Right.
Um, which doesn't make any sense because I think people understand that they're two different things. And also you were able to make these great movies because you were able to harvest all these great ideas from all these creative people just doing all these comics. And why would you want to curb that and have them imitate the movies? You should just have them people wanting to be creative, come up with more ideas. And there's no better place for coming up with ideas than comics. Because not only are comic people, we're all kind of crazy and come up with wacky stuff and we're nerdy and like all of that, but it's just like um, it's so easy to do. Like just, handful of people and you make all these comics, you know? So anyway, uh, the parts that were the challenge were the exciting parts. That's what made it worth doing because it's like weren't just a pair of hands and scripters and I could sit down and be like, okay, this is what they want us to do. Let's try and figure. No, it was like they gave us this idea, this that really spoke to us and sparked us, and then like, how do we make it how do we make it emotionally powerful, but also is exciting and crazy and all the things that we do, like they gave us the room to do that, which that's the way you're going to get the best work out of creative people is give them the space to be creative.
Right. It sounds like the pitch was more a jumping off point, rather than
Yeah.
a set of rules or boundaries that you
Yeah, I
had
mean, I
or
don't know,
even
maybe we'll
mile.
go print the
Yeah.
pitch because actually I've read through it recently because I have to tell you, we actually started this the first time we read the pitch when this started was actually back before the pandemic started.
Oh wow.
So it goes back, and then the pandemic kind of knocked everything sideways, and it went dormant for a little bit. Uh, but it's actually all completed. It's the whole thing. I don't know if all the colorings might not be done, but like our part, like the writing and the drawing that Maria did, and I lettered it as well. Um, uh, so yeah, so that's all done. And but yeah, so going back, I mean, the pictures, a lot of it is in there. It wasn't just like, here's the idea of the cop and he's been poisoned. They had a lot of information about how they saw the town. Um, I think and and sort of how like how these all spin together, and there was this sort of wider conspiracy that so a lot of that like we were just had to figure out details on, but then there was room for us to create a lot of new characters. There's like a hitman that we invented in this, which I think is really very unique concept that I don't think I've seen before. And there are other characters, like my favorite character is this character is the sheriff's sister, Bobby, and she is an Afghanistan war veteran, um, and she came back and she's really messed up in the head and speaks to fairies and things like that, and but also very, very, very capable. I think she's like my favorite character. But she was in the original pitch, and then but we gave her more attributes around her, and we're able to make her our own. Um, so yeah, there was a lot. I have to give them a lot. What inspired us is that they you can tell that they had an idea for a big concept in a small town. And but yeah, there was tons of room for us to come in and do our thing over the top of that and add to it.
I wanted to ask how, her name has come up several times. You work very closely with your wife, Maria, but
Mhm.
what is that like in terms of kind of the division of labor or even just strengths? Like, is she great at
Um,
dialogue? Are you better at
no,
narrative? Is it just,
usually strengths are like I work a lot on instinct, and I'll just like have a notion and I'll just start putting stuff in and running with it. And uh and where Maria is like super deep and insightful, and lots of times she can look at something I put down and she can see like 5 levels below that, or things like um, that I'm not even aware of that I'll put in there, and then she can expand on those. Um, but as far as division of labor, it depends on the project. Like just in basically like straight bullets, like a lot of it will stem, a lot of the like ideas or plots will stem from us just talking. Um, especially after we got going, it'd be just like driving down the road and we'll say something like, hey, what about this? And we'll just riff on it. Um, I'm probably more of the like the workhorse elements. Like so usually like I'll sit down and I'll write like the first draft through. on something. After we've talked about it, and we kind of have an idea. So then I'll sit down and I'll write it up, and then she'll read it, and then she'll either write on top of that, or we'll sit down and we'll go through it again and talk about like what it all sort of means and like um where else we might go, like what ideas that she has to then add to it. Um and and then once we get a lot of the Stray Bullet stuff would be like then having mostly we would have a script, like a final script. There's been times where I drawn it off just notes that we came up with. But usually we have a script and then I'll execute it, and then we'll look at it, and Maria's just super brilliant about um the deeper emotions of what's going on, which is I think one of the reasons why we so many of the Stray Bullets episodes hit hard. Um So, um, she's able to just sort of feel out like exactly like what the beat we want to hit, what we want to convey to the audience, um and whether we succeeded in that. Uh, so yeah, there's been lots of, and if you notice, a lot of Stray Bullets issues will run. Generally, they're around 28, but sometimes they'll go longer. There'll be 30 pages or 32 pages. And a lot of that's because we got to the end. And it's just like the ending feels too rushed, or we need to open it up at the end, or we need more here, or we need another beat on this. Um, and everything's about like coming to that final moment where um, usually in Stray Bullets it's a tragic moment, but like where you really get that gut punch. And uh which is an instinct of mine to want to do, and then like Maria's be like a surgeon to come in and be able to she sees all the subtext and all the beats, and knows whether we hit it or not, or whether like we need more, and then what we need to make it happen. um so like I said, I'm more instinctual. So like if I get it like on the first pass, like I'm good. If it's not quite right, sometimes I'm a little lost in the wilderness. Um without talking it out. But yeah, so I don't know if that answers it, because we like I said, we do it all sorts of different ways. Um but yeah, mostly it's a back and forth, and it usually all starts from conversations, and then refining it. Um,
And it turns out, I'm sure, different and better than had either
yeah,
one of you
yeah.
gone at it or your
I
own
have to,
way.
at least from my perspective, it turns out better than anything. It always feels good when yeah, when you do it and you think you got it pretty good, and then you go over it and you're like, hey, what if we change this, this, and this? I always feel like every time we change something, it gets better,
Yeah.
it goes up a level. And one of the reasons why I think that I'll just bring it back to Stray Bullets, but one of the reasons why there's very few misses in Stray Bullets, really, like um uh it's very consistently like um excellent, because there is that balance. It's not just me doing it or just her doing it. It's like um, there's always someone else there to sort of check when you're going off, um, or when something's not working. Um,
Yeah.
we've had like whole times when, especially when we came back with through Image, when we did this sort of the second run. Stray Bullets through Image. The very first issue we did is like I was executing a lot of that and came to a point where like this just isn't working, and we like threw the and Maria looked at me and she was just like, this is you're not we can't pull this, like we can't, this isn't working, this isn't like the magic, and we tossed the whole issue and then started over, which we became Killers #1, which I think is one of the best, which one of my favorite issues. We sort of found in like doing one that didn't work, we sort of found our like mojo back to what Stray Bullets is, but and that's also a strength of Maria's, where she's like she's a killer with it. Like like, because I'm more like I spent like 2 weeks like on this. We have to just make it work somehow. She's like, no, it's not right. You know, it's got to go. That
Ruthless.
doesn't happen very often. Like, but she's right. You can't hold on to something if it's
Yeah.
not working, and you need to have someone that can tell you that.
Yeah. Keeps you honest and not too precious
Yeah,
about
and
your work. Yeah.
keeps the work good. You know,
Right.
that's the only important thing in the end.
So as we come to the close and to bring it back to good is dead, I would love to know if you could sort of summarize for someone who's looking to pick up this book and sees your and Maria's name. Um, what about it will they find, maybe comforting is the wrong word, but similar, that they will pick up on if they're fans of your work? And what is maybe a little different than maybe if they're straight bullet fans or
Yeah.
anything else that's different that they can look forward to?
Well, I would say it's like I said, it's very seeped in. Like it comes from the element of a classic noir crime base, and it has a lot of straight bullets elements. But what's different about it is we were able to um create this very like small this environment, this town, and all the characters that sort of populate it, and really create this world like a Twin Peaks, or like The Prisoner, or like it's got elements of like Chinatown. It's got elements of like Close Encounters in it, and things that aren't, that you might not have found in Stray Bullets. So it's a little bit sideways from that. But it's got a real hardcore uh base, and then there's crazy stuff. I just see there's like mystical things, there's aliens, there's um we really play a lot with like almost there's horror elements to it. Um and it's um yeah, it's really exciting in that in that there's sort of there's a no boundaries feel to it. So and I think becomes apparent pretty early on in it. So it's not, um, it starts off a little like a traditional noir, but it quickly like you quickly get a lot of other flavors in there that make it not just another crime comic. And then hopefully you also get sucked into the characters like you like in a Stray Bullets kind of way. Um, like I said, because we did have the space to make everyone real, everyone have their own hangups and messed up histories, and uh yeah, it's a real place, and I think people are gonna really like it.
Great place to leave it. Looking forward to the first issue, I think, on September 17th, and then the remaining five after that. As we close, what can you tell us, if anything, about other projects that might be coming up that we have to look forward to, and also where fans can follow you and Maria online?
Um, yeah, actually, there's quite a lot of stuff coming out like right now. A lot of things that have been going on for a few years, and everything seems to be coming out all at once. So th this is all done and it's coming out now. Um, there's another book that also starts this fall called American Caper, which I'm penciling and doing layout storytelling on from a it's coming out from Dark Horse, which is uh, but I'm doing in collaboration with this company called Absurd Ventures, which is one of the brothers who started Rockstar Games, the
Okay,
GTA
yeah.
and Red Dead Redemption, and he went off on his own and made his own multimedia company, and they love comics, so he wanted to do a comic. So they brought in Shelley Bond, my old editor from Vertigo, and then she brought me in, and we're doing this comic with them, and how and which I'm doing the storytelling penciling on, and helping them translate their ideas into comic form. So there's a challenge there. People who love comics but haven't made one before, and we're bringing that together, and that's going to start this fall. And then I also doing some EC stuff with Oni, um, just shorts for them drawing some stuff. And then I also do a lot of work with Bad Idea.
Right.
Um, uh, and some of it working with when I'm drawing with guys like Robert Venditti and Matt Kint and Josh Dysart. Um, uh, and Josh and I have a series a bigger series coming from them. I think it's going to be called Habitat, although they may change that title. But it's sort of it's a horror story set in a basically a bunker in a post-apocalyptic setting, about these people trapped in this very sort of the bunker built by a tech billionaire, and then bad stuff happens.
Hijinks
Um,
ensue.
and Marie and I recently had another book that we collaborated on called The Ends, from also from Bad Idea, which is sort of which is a sort of love story set against a neo-Nazi invasion of a seaside town. Um, and that's already out, but it did come out recently. They did a big book of it. And I do other stuff. But yeah, those are sort of some of the main things.
All right, we're back. David, thank you for being on the show. Maybe next time we can have your lovely wife Maria with you, because you guys are collaborators, and we love to have everybody together putting together the books on the same program. So we'll keep that in our back pocket. But everybody go pick up Good as Dead #1, comes out today. Fantastic new miniseries, and look forward to the rest of that and all the other work David has coming out. He's a busy, busy guy. Before we wrap up, I wanted to say thank you to Cam Giles, who sent a review on Apple Podcasts. It is titled Insightful Interviews. Really enjoy how many creators they have interviews with. They really do let the creators talk about what they want, well styled, and the interviews really give a great perspective. Thank you, Cam Giles, for leaving a review. If you guys want to get a shout out, there are two ways of doing it. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform, or join us on Dollar Bin Boosters on Patreon. We have early and uncut episodes. We have our early schedule. You get to ask questions of creators that are coming up. So please join us there. Until next time, that'll do it. Thank you very much, and We'll see you next issue.